Alright, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to my new series. I don't know what I'm calling it yet, but hopefully it'll be in the title. But we're going to be reading through some Star Wars stories in timeline order. Because I've been reading a lot of Star Wars books lately, and I thought it'd be cool to go back through some of these ones and do it on camera and just kind of have story time with y'all. Assuming that there's no copyright issues with that, there might be. But we'll be kicking things off. This is also my source for where they place in the timeline is going to be Wikipedia. There may be an occasional swap for me if I think one needs to be read before another. We'll get to that once we get over to the Light of the Jedi and Into the Dark. Technically, one happens first, but they happen at the same time. One starts slightly earlier, but it's really more important you read the other one first. Coming from somebody who read it the other way around the first time through, you should read one first. But anyway, today we'll be starting things off with a short story, part of the collection Tales of Light and Life. This story is going to be called The Queen's Bloom by Zoraida Cordova. She's also the author of Into the Dark, I think, and a couple other some other Star Wars books, but that's the one I read most recently from her, I believe. But we're going to start things off by reading this introduction to the High Republic from Michael Ziglain, just because I feel like it sets up a good, it's a good setup for the book and for this whole era of Star Wars, really, because this is back in the High Republic. If you don't know, for some reason are watching this, this is set roughly a century before the Phantom Menace. But hello there, welcome to the glorious era of the High Republic. You're in for a real treat. Before you are stories filled with adventure, betrayal, horror, friendship, and hope. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As you may or may not know, Star Wars The High Republic is an ambitious multi-publisher mega-story set centuries before Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo put an end to the tyranny of the Galactic Empire. Told in 3 phases, it mirrors the Skywalker saga that it tells the middle of the story, being Phase 1, Light of the Jedi, then the beginning, Phase 2, Quest of the Jedi, then the end, Phase 3, Trials of the Jedi. It begins with the Galactic Renaissance, then a great disaster, and will ultimately answer the question, what scares the Jedi? From the very first days of this initiative, Star Wars The High Republic has been a collaborative effort. From all our Star Wars authors, or from our all-star authors, just got Star Wars on the mind, to our incredible artists, to the editors, and all the people behind the scenes. Everyone has worked tirelessly to create this all-new era that showcases the Jedi at their height, and nowhere is that more relevant than in this book. Lucasfilm Publishing strives to offer a story and a format for every reader, and with this book we certainly try to deliver on the former. In this eclectic anthology, our luminous authors have put their hearts and souls into all new stories set before, during, and after our phases. Some expand on stories that have already been printed in novels, comics, and magazines, and some tease stories yet to come. If you haven't read any of our other stories set in the High Republic, don't worry, all are welcome here. We've saved you a seat on the long beam. If you've read some of our stories, great. You'll surely catch all the little Easter eggs and connections sprinkled throughout. Either way, you're in for tales of excitement and escapism. Without giving anything away, I will say that the stories included here are epic tales of Jedi adventures, personal stories that spotlight specific heroes and villains, and larger looks both backward and forward at the events of this era. Some stories will introduce new characters, some will reveal the fate of others, but all will transport you to a dangerous time filled with opportunity and anticipation, a time when the bright blade of the lightsaber shone its hopeful and protective glow over the vast galactic frontier, the golden age of the Jedi Knights. With that, it's time to begin, and these stories begin the same way all great Star Wars do, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I hope that you enjoy the journey, and I thank you for the reading. For Light and Life, Michael Ziglain, Creative Director of Lucasfilm Publishing. Alright, so now it's time to start The Queen's Bloom. So today we'll be doing Chapter 1. Axel Greylark was dying, or so it seemed. Beads of sweat peppered the bow of his upper lip and his smooth brow, matting his soft black waves against his temples. Grabbing the nurse droid's metal wrist, Axel writhed in his damp sheets. Despite his raspy voice, he managed to eke out, "Save yourself. Leave me be." "Blathers!" Rye Harkett, Dean of Student Life, positively fumed. The Bival female's large protruding eyes didn't even seem to blink, as if she was sure if she did, Axel Greylark would pull off another prank right under her nostrils. "Take his temperature again." The nurse droid swiveled its white metallic head, photoreceptor blinking blue as it readied a response. "Patient has exhibited a temperature of 38.8889 4 times in a row. Mistress, a 5th time would be the definition of insanity." Axel hid his smile with a loud, perhaps over-the-top, cough. Throughout the years at Rena University, Axel had developed a favorable bond with the nurse droids. This one, who we'd taken to calling Una, had a personality chip no one could seem to alter. "Take it again," Dean Harkett said, one of her bulging eyes not so much blinking as twitching. Una beeped the acceptance of the command, and her headplate whirled to face the ailing 17-year-old boy. He clutched his stomach, but cooperated. He parted his lips and allowed the cold metal stick to be placed under his tongue. His fringe of black lashes blinked slowly, although nothing could truly hide the mischievous glint there. 38.50, Una said in that soothing mechanical voice. "A fraction less," Dean Harkett barked in weak victory. She rubbed her long, skinny fingers together, as if she could manifest the truth from thin air. Clearly, he's found a way to fake an illness to get out of class at his duties during the celebration. I assure you, mistress." The nurse droid's head spun around again as it retracted its thermometer arm. "Fever, stomach cramps, headache, and sore throat. Axel Greylark is exhibiting the same symptoms as the common Molongo pox making its way through the East Tower. If he's lucky, he'll sleep it off. If he isn't, next come the pus-filled blisters." "Save yourself, Dean Harkett," Axel managed between whooping coughs. Una said, "Aquatic beings are immune to Molongo pox." "Lucky me," the Bival sniveled. Her comlink pinged relentlessly, and she finally responded to the call. Yes, I'll be right down on the fairgrounds." She turned to the droid and added, "Give him a sedative." "Negative," Una said. "Mr. Greylark's file says he cannot be administered sedatives." Dean Harkett's composure broke. Her upper lip curled to reveal tiny teeth. "And why not?" "Gives me nightmares." Axel winced as he propped himself up on the bed. "My parents will be so thrilled when they arrive tomorrow, Dean Harkett. I'll be sure to commend you on how well you've tended to me." He reached for the cup of hot tea at the side of his bed. As the nurse droid rolled back on its heels, Dean Harkett crouched at Axel's bedside. The Bival woman pitched her seething voice to a whisper. "I know it was you. I know it was you who graffitied the atrium with lewd drawings. I know it was you who let loose the Minox from the laboratory. And I know it was you who flooded the refreshers in the West Tower's dormitories. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but I'm going to catch you, Axel Greylark." Axel, whose face managed to remain the perfect balance between innocent and deathly ill, allowed the barest hint of a smile. "As every investigation revealed, I am innocent, but I thoroughly hope the rascal is brought to justice." "It was you," the dean hissed, then cleared her throat and tugged on the collar of her structured red dress cloak. "I look forward to meeting your parents at the festival tomorrow and discussing how often you've been sick this time." Axel Greylark had racked up 30 absences, each one signed off on by a nurse droid. The school's administration had inspected the droids for possible tampering, but found nothing. Besides, having the son of the Coruscant's political royalty as a student outweighed the few sick days. He had top marks, was a powerful orator in the galactic debate tournaments, and was a center striker in grab ball. When it came to merits, the young Mr. Greylark was second only to Lord Cosmo Sundro IV of Luzolite. The Dean of Student Affairs was momentarily discouraged from further antagonizing Axel, but she'd keep a large, keen eye on him. With a final glare, she backed out of his room, Una following at her heeled feet, and stalked off into the fairgrounds. Axel eased onto his feather-soft pillows. He picked at something in his teeth and flicked a tiny red seed away. He sat up and stretched his arms, still sore from practice 2 days before. He stood and arched his back until he heard a tiny crack. Reaching beneath his pillow, he removed the stems of 3 tiny Ouija fire peppers. Each one was barely 5 centimeters long, used to make a condiment oil. A single drop of the stuff could set one's tongue on fire, and he'd consumed, well, several raw peppers, enough to temporarily mimic the systems of Malangopox, minus the actual pox. He almost felt bad for Dean Harkett. After all, if she'd had the nurse droid check his temperature even once more, the drop in degrees would have signaled his miraculous recovery. He tried other methods with less success, a furious minute of calisthenics, the effects of which faded too quickly, drinking piping hot tea right when he heard the droid's clanking wheels approaching, nearly fainting in a steam bath to bring on the vapors. The Dean could have caught him, if she were only more patient, more vigilant. So really, whose fault was it that Axel got away with a few harmless pranks in the hallowed halls of Rena University? Axel undressed and quickly showered for the day. His dormitory suite in the East Tower had everything he could need: food, drinks, holograms, and a small lounge where he tested the boundaries of the no parties rule. By the time he was dressed, in a forest-green suit and raking fingers through his damp hair, his suite bell chimed. "It's me," came the sweetest voice he'd ever heard. My background music is buffering. He punched the door open and leaned just out of view of the busy hall. A strange sensation buzzed in the pit of his stomach when he saw her. Laylee Romero. The first thing that always struck him about Laylee was the twin gold star tattoo mods under the corners of her eyes. Actually, everything about her struck him all at once. Her smile, the blush pink of her skin, the gentle peaks of her ears, the shock of dark pink hair she always styled in 2 long plaits that whipped around her shoulders. He noticed that Laylee right away when... I cannot speak today. He'd noticed Laylee right away when he'd returned for the new start of term. The Kilatoan girl always sat alone in the lecture halls, the cafeteria, the common rooms. Then he'd introduced himself, and she'd sat with him ever since. Her family, the Romero clan, hailing from the remote world of Kilatoa, however you pronounce that, had a reputation in the Mid-Rim as thieves and spice runners hiding behind the farming empire. With no charges, that reputation remained rumor. The more he'd gotten to know her, the less he could imagine her having anything to do with her father's enterprise. And even if she did, Laylee had explained one night she wasn't allowed to be her own person. After all, his own father, Lexia Greylark, was a senator from Coruscant, as was his mother, Kyong Greylark, even had her sights set on the Chancellor's seat in the upcoming elections. Axel came from a long lineage of politicians, explorers, adventurers, and whatever measures of success the university seemed to care about. But he wanted nothing to do with it. He'd much prefer to make his own mark. Axel's good mood was diminished when he saw the boy standing behind Laylee. Cosmo. Axel remarked in the same tone he'd say, "Unseasoned boiled vegetables." The pair of them waltzed in and made themselves at home in his lounge. The room no longer felt big enough for the three of them. "I hope you don't mind," Cosmo said in his regal, clipped basic. "Laylee mentioned you were in need of a speeder for an excursion." Axel gnawed at the corner of his lip. He looked at Laylee, but she shrugged innocently. "There's a bay full of ships we could borrow." "There's a bay full of ships we could borrow." "Because I can steal doesn't mean I have to do it," she said. "Especially when someone's willing to help." Something inside him twisted when the girl he was mooning over and his own worst enemy shared a look. The kind of look that placed a secret between them. He wanted Laylee's secrets to be his. How he dreamed of retiring on a small island away from the troubles of her family. How she hated the way even the professors at the university acted scared of her and failed to challenge her on account of rumors that her father cut off the limbs of his enemies. What was she telling Cosmo with this ridiculous curly coif and outlandish medallion pendant made of the luzolite diamond found only on his world? "Don't you have better things to do today?" Axel asked his rival. Cosmo's family contributed to his mother's political campaign, which meant they had to see each other at galas on Coruscant. But that didn't mean he wanted to spend his university days with a boy whose arrogance and entitlement rivaled those of literal princes he'd met. "I had a test in advanced mineralogy, and I got top marks," Cosmo grinned, helping himself to Axel's fizzy water. Because his parents always stressed the importance of being a good host, he said nothing. Nothing about the water, at least. "Right, is that where you play with shiny rocks?" "Cutting class," Cosmo mused. "Is that where you play with yourself?" Axel chuckled once, then shot up with every intention of throwing Cosmo out by his ridiculous medallion. Laylee was there before he could blink, her hands firm against his chest. When he focused on the gold stars under her eyes, he suddenly found how easy it was to forget about Cosmo's jab. "Look, none of us exactly want to waste the first perfect day of the season volunteering at the Queen's Bloom Festival. Especially," Laylee said, walking her fingers across his chest, right over his heart, then tapping her gold nail on his nose. "When all the real parties are down at the waterfront, and Cosmo is generous enough to take us. Unless you're too ill to come along." Axel chafed at the idea that he needed any help from the Lord of Stupas over there. But he sort of liked that Laylee had included the two of them in an us. Us versus Cosmo was better than the alternative. "What are we waiting for?" Axel asked, turning his very best smile on the pair of them. "I do feel I've made a miraculous recovery." So that is the end of Chapter 1. Next week, we'll be heading into Chapter 2 as we continue this short story. As for the Queen's Bloom, my opinion on it, I do like it. I do like the way... It's weird for it to be the earliest piece of media currently released in the timeline. But that's just how it is. And it is beneficial to, in the long run. It adds on to the experience of some of the further stories we'll be getting into later. So, thank you everybody for watching or listening, if you are listening. And in the next one, we'll be taking on Chapter 2 of The Queen's Bloom. So, I will catch you guys in the next one, and goodbye.